Hey guys, this is Arun,
And this is Abby.
and welcome back to a brand new episode of Fill Your Pockets. Today's episode will be Thursday, August the 19th. Before we start today's episode, quick recap of yesterday's plays. So yesterday's we posted 3 plays on our Instagram page. The first play was a parlay bet. It did not hit. We went 0-3 yesterday, just throwing that out there. Definitely our worst day by far so far, but we do plan on bouncing back. But our first play of yesterday was a parlay bet. We had the Houston Astros. They ended up losing to the Royals by 1 run, 2-3. And the second leg of that parlay was the Atlanta Braves. We took them against the Marlins. They won against the Marlins, but we parlayed the Houston and the Braves, so that did not hit. And then we had 2 plays for the straight bets. Our first play for the straight bet was the Boston money line against the Yankees. They ended up losing 2-5. And the other straight bet was San Francisco. The Giants, they ended up losing to the Mets 6-2. 0-3 for the day yesterday, but we do plan on bouncing back today. And Abhishek, what's your thoughts on these game yesterday? I
Oh,
know,
I
I
have a
know.
lot of thoughts. Thank you, Arun. Summed it up beautifully. Oh, I'm going off on this because
Go ahead, man.
the record. Listen, I accept losing because it happens. It happens in stock market. It happens in life. It happens in sports betting, especially. It happens in a lot of different things. But everything has context in it. So, first game was the Mets and Giants. Listen, after the first inning, Anthony D. Descalfani, however you say his last name, no disrespect to him. He got hurt second inning. And after that, it was basically you're praying that you can hold on for dear life because they used every single other pitcher they had yesterday. Every single one on the roster pitched yesterday. So it was a 1-0 game in the ninth inning. The Mets finally scored 1 run, and then it went to the 12th inning. And at that point, it was just we got nobody left, and they couldn't find a way to win that game. So as soon as he got hurt, I'm like, oh, you know what? I accept. No big deal. One game, 1 L, accepted. We can't predict injuries. We can't predict stuff like that in any situation. So I was able to easily move on from that game. Then we had the Red Sox Yankees. I was so wrong about the Red Sox. I will fully admit that. Plus 100, it just got me. Plus 100, I was like, oh, this looks nice. But Andrew Heaney, after all the shit I said about him, well deserved shit because he was shit. But yesterday he was like a Cy Young winner. He 7 innings, 1 run. He was phenomenal. The Red Sox just couldn't do shit to him. And the Red Sox 6-14 their last 20 games. The only teams they really be in is they swept the Orioles and they beat the Rays. I think once they beat the Tigers once. So the Red Sox had the pitching advantage in my opinion yesterday. It didn't work out. They couldn't hit. 1 runs, two runs scored. That last inning was, in my opinion, it could have went either way. He looked safe to me in that last play, but obviously I could be a little biased here because I picked the Red Sox. We picked the Red Sox. Regardless, they didn't do enough to win and they lost. Braves, Miami, that was easy in my opinion. Even though in the end the Miami Marlins made it a little interesting. It was such a big lead that the Atlanta Braves didn't want to waste anybody, so they threw someone out there. He got destroyed, and then they had to bring Will Smith in, and he gave up 2 runs. But they closed it out. They did what they did, 11-9. It was 11-3 at one point. That game was over. But now this game pissed me off the most. Houston, Kansas City. Houston, I should know better. This team just does not play well against teams that aren't good. I said this on a podcast, I think a week ago or 2 weeks ago with you, Arun,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't listen to my own advice in the situation. But yesterday, they took a 2-1 lead. They finally scored, got a 2-1 lead, seventh inning, and they gave it up the next inning. And then that last play, Altuve hits the ball. I'm like, okay, here we go. Tie game. We still got 1 out, but nope. They say Chance McCormick, who was the runner, is out. He looked clear as day safe to me. For you to be that definitive and think he's out and take away an opportunity to tie the game is absolute nonsense. Replay in NBA is better. Replay in football is better. Replay in baseball is absolute trash. I don't understand it. It's legit. You can legit see what's going on. Forget about what you called on the field. That means nothing. Get the call right. And for you to say definitively that he was out and take a chance from a team to win the game or tie the game and have the opportunity to win the game, that's absolute bullshit. But regardless, took the L, accept it, you move on. Baseball's every day, so you get the new as soon as the next day the sun rises, you got a chance to come back. That's the one benefit I would say. That's why we're back here. We're not scared of losing. We still got a
Yep.
winning record, and we will redeem ourselves.
All right, guys. With that being said, let's get today's episode started. We'll be going over 4 games. We're 18 and 16 for the season, but we do plan on bouncing back today. So let's jump right into it. First game of the day. It's a really early game, 1 o'clock Eastern time game. Baltimore Orioles taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. Right now, the Tampa Bay Rays are straight up killing the Orioles in the season series, 14-1.
Damn.
Even yeah,
Damn.
even the odds are favoring the Tampa Bay Rays heavily. They're sitting at minus 380 odds. Very,
Ridiculous.
yeah, that's ridiculous. And Orioles plus 290. Abhishek first game of the night. Orioles first Tampa Bay Rays. Who you got?
This is ridiculous, man. We're gonna review this game, but this shit's ridiculous. You're nearly minus 400 in a baseball game, which is, bro, like that's like the Golden State Warriors with Kevin Durant playing against my Orlando Magic. That's basically what they're basically saying here in baseball. So, but we still, why not? Let's go over it. Baltimore lost 14 straight. They're just, one of those teams. Them, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Arizona. They're just trying to get to the next season. 14 straight. That's 2 straight weeks of losing. So half a month of losing straight. That's insane, in my opinion. They're a huge underdog today. This is the biggest underdog in a long time, actually, that I've seen. Minus 380. It's been a minute since we've had something this favored. The line opened at minus 300. Now it's minus 380, which is insane. As Arun mentioned, 14-1. The Rays have absolutely destroyed this team this season. 14-1. Not a single, and one thing I noticed is in the last 10 games that the Orioles have played, and lost actually, not a single one of those last 10 games has been under 1-run game. They've lost every single one of those games by at least 2 or more runs. So that's interesting, in my opinion, for today's game, especially if you want to play this game. Jorge Lopez is their pitcher today. He's had some bright moments for them this season recently, but he's been very inconsistent. And to be honest, I don't give a shit who's pitching for Baltimore at this point because they can't score, and they're pitching against the Rays. Clearly does not work because the Rays are 14-1 against them. Then we get into the Rays, 7-3 in the last 10. These past 3 games they played against the Orioles, they're averaging 9 runs against them. Averaging. They scored 8 runs, then 9 runs, then 10 runs. Absolutely insane. They're scoring at will. 14-1 versus the Orioles, as Arun and myself mentioned. McCallahan is their only, in my opinion, he's their only real pitcher that pitches for them because the rest, they disguise them, they bring them in later on, whatever. This is their real number 1 pitcher right now if I had to pick, and he's a rookie, lefty, and he's been really consistent for them. He's been what's it called? Saving grace for them, to be honest. They've won his last 3 starts. He's been dominant, in my opinion. With that said, minus 380. That is, don't even think about that. That's insane. You'd be a moron to touch that. But the run line, even that is pretty crazy. Minus 1.5 run is minus 180 now, if I'm not mistaken. Arun, if you could double check that. But
Yeah, it's moving.
that is even that. So it could potentially, the game starts in 2 hours. That shit could hit minus 200. So I'll say this: if you can get the minus 1.5 between 150 to 170, I would take it. But anything over 170, there's no way in hell I'm playing that because at that point, it's not worth it. Especially with the rest of the games on today, you can go somewhere else. You don't have to touch the game. But this is clear as day. Rays all day. Minus 1.5 would be the play. There's no way you touch the money line. You'd be a fool to touch the money line.
All right, moving on to the second game of the night. We have a
Deep
this
game.
game is actually Yeah. It's 2 o'clock game, early game once again. The Mariners taking on the Texas Rangers. The Mariners are leading the season series 12-6 right now. DraftKings has the Mariners as favorites, minus 140. You can find that value on almost any bookie. And the Texas Rangers are going to be plus 120 underdogs. So Abhishek, this second game of the day, Mariners taking on the Rangers. Who you got?
I found something very interesting with this game. But before I get into it, Seattle versus Texas, obviously these teams have played each other a lot this season. It's been pretty close, to be honest. Neither of these teams score a lot. That's why. Last 2 games they just played, Seattle won both games 3-1, 3-1, 3-1. So they've been very close, low scoring. Seattle has found a way to win the games. Seattle is 7-10 their last 10 games. But now we get into the matchup for the pitching. Chris Flexen. If I'm sorry if I'm saying his name wrong, but he has been a godsend for them. He's been one of the reasons why this team is where they are right now. The Mariners. The Mariners are only 3 games out of the playoffs, so they're still right there. I understand the Yankees are red hot. The Red Sox are still up there. The Blue Jays are still there. But the Seattle Mariners, no one's talking about them. They're only 3 games out. So they have a lot to play for. A lot to play for. They have to win games like this. They have to sweep teams like the Rangers. So back to what I was saying about Flexen. They're 15-7 in his 22 starts, which is great. 15-27. I mean 15-7, my bad. 15-7 in his 22 starts, which is absolutely great. Now this is the stat that I found, or the note that I took down. That's pretty crazy. In those 22 starts, out of the 7 that he's lost, none of those teams that he's lost to was a team with a losing record. So he has only lost to teams that are actually good. So out of a 22-game sample, I think that's a pretty great measuring point because April, May, June, July, and now August, nearly 5 months, you've pitched 22 times, nearly 5 times a month, and at none of those times did you lose to a team that had a losing record. So listen, anything can happen, obviously, but it's just something I took note of. I think it basically tells me that he takes care of the teams he's supposed to take care of, and he's pitched against the Rangers 4 times in his career. He's 4-0. They've won all 4 times that he's pitched against the Rangers. 2.8 ERA, which is phenomenal. And this season, Flexen has pitched against the Rangers 3 times, 3-0, has not lost, 3-0. And then we get to the Rangers. They're 3-7 their last 10 games. Once again, one of those teams that's struggling. They're hanging. They're trying to. They do have some bright pieces going into next season. They Garcia, Khalifa, a couple other players. Spencer Howard, their big trade that they got, the young pitcher they traded for from the Phillies in the trade deadline. He's pitching today. The problem is he could have a great start, but he does not pitch that much. He only pitches like 3 innings, 4 innings max. So even if he does do a great job, bullpen's going to come in, and I don't trust them at all. Obviously, minus 140, as Arun mentioned, that is great value. It's kind of scary, but because why is it so close? It could be because none of these teams really score that much. But listen, when I read that, when I looked that up, and I found out that Flexen has taken care of every team he's had to, this is a must-win game because they have to stay. They're right there still. I think you have to pick the Seattle Mariners in the situation.
All right. Moving on to the third game of the night, 7 o'clock Eastern time game. We have the Minnesota Twins taking on the New York Yankees. The line for the Yankees opened up at minus 115. Right now, sitting at minus 255. So it definitely has moved a lot. Minnesota underdogs plus 205 for today's game. The Yankees are on a nice little 6 game winning streak, Abhishek. So
Yep.
this third game, Twins versus Yankees, who you got, man?
You're absolutely right. The Yankees are red hot. This is the best they've played the whole season. Obviously it's a long season, so they have saved their best for nearly the last. But low key, Minnesota last 10 games 7-3. So Minnesota also don't sleep on them because
Oh,
they're also winning games. I understand their season's over. They're not going to do shit this year, But if people may have forgotten, this Minnesota team made the playoffs the last 2 seasons. I want to say three, but I know they made it the last 2 seasons. Um, and they had high expectations this season. A lot of people and pundits or whatever analysts picked them to win the division or at least compete with the White Sox. Obviously, that has not happened. Injuries, players not playing up to standard. They traded away their best player, Nelson Cruz, to the Rays, but still, they were still a team that made the playoffs the last 2 seasons at least. But the Yankees have had their number. They're 11. I think the stat was that Minnesota is 11-40 in their last 51 games against the Yankees. That's insane. Um, like I mentioned, Minnesota. We'll get into them first here. They're the road team. They are playing better, 7-3 in the last 10. They did win 2 games against the Tampa Bay Rays, so you can take that for what it's worth at home. But it doesn't matter in my opinion because each game is its own entity because each game the starting pitcher changes. That's the biggest thing in baseball. I don't give a shit if you're 0-20. If your best pitcher's pitching and the other team's worst pitcher's pitching, you have a chance that day. So, but today, Minnesota, John Gant, they traded for him from St. Louis. He has been up and down. He's been okay as a reliever. Today, he's starting. I know Arun mentioned this line was minus 115 to start. That was because before the change happened, Kenta Maeda was going to start this game for Minnesota. And he has been their only pitcher that has actually been consistent for them. As soon as they changed him, he's pitching on Saturday now. As soon as they changed that, this line skyrocketed. And then it got to like minus 275 at one point. Now it's 255, Arun, if I'm not mistaken. I
Yep.
think you can. The run line is minus 150, I think, minus 1.5.
Yep.
So yeah, there it is. Arun, thanks for the confirmation. But John Gant as a starter, 5.9 ERA. He has not been good starting. And yesterday, Minnesota played a game against Cleveland. That game went into extra innings. And 7-8 game, crazy game. Minnesota ended up winning by 1 run. But their bullpen was used a lot. There were several players that pitched over 20 pitches in that game. I don't think they could be available today because of the load they carried yesterday. Their bullpen already isn't that good anyways. So their best pitchers already are gone that aren't even that good. So if John Gant is starting, I don't know how much he's going to even give you because he hasn't pitched that much anyways. And as a starter, he hasn't been good also. Now we get into the Yankees. Oh, man. I have not done well this year betting against the Yankees. I think I'm 1-3 against them this year so far in this show that we've been doing for the past nearly a month. Right now, what do you guys say? Yankees, hottest team in baseball. It is what it is. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They're 16-4 in their last 20. As Arun mentioned to start this off, 6 straight wins, and they're beating some good teams. They beat the Rays. They beat the Red Sox yesterday. They beat the White Sox. They beat Seattle. Their only like easy wins were against probably the Orioles, but they've taken care of business against some real quality teams. So now we get into the pitching matchup. I don't care what anyone says. I understand Garrett Cole. He has pedigree. He has a $300 million contract. If I was to start one game for the Yankees, do or die, game 7, right now, I'm starting the guy there that's pitching today for the Yankees. Jameson, Tylon, he has been absolutely fantastic. In his past 7 starts, 1.7 ERA, and they've won his past 6 starts that he started. They should have won every start, the last 7 starts, but the bullpen choked against the Houston Astros. So he has been absolutely amazing. Last year, obviously, he was hurt for Pittsburgh. He had that injury in his, I think he had Tommy John, or he had something serious. The Yankees took a flyer on him. They traded for him. He started off his career as a Yankee shaky, but then he figured it out. He looks healthy. He looks comfortable. He looks confident. He has been absolutely amazing. The line is falling. It's minus 255 now. If this keeps going down, that's even better in my opinion because then you could maybe do a parlay with this situation. But we are going to pick the Yankees. But how we pick them, that is going to be something we take note of.
All right. So moving on to the last game that we'll be going over. 7 o'clock, 7:45 Eastern Time game. The Milwaukee Brewers taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. Right now, Milwaukee is leading the season series 5-3. Milwaukee is also the favorite for today, minus 210 value. St. Louis plus 175 value on DraftKings. So Abhishek, last game of the night, Brewers taking on the Cardinals. Who you got?
Uh, this is, I think this is a mismatch in my opinion. The St. Louis Cardinals have done a great job fooling people, in my opinion. They have crawled back into the wild card race. They're only 4 games back, but that little comeback that they're making is fool's gold. Before I get into St. Louis, I'll get into Milwaukee. Milwaukee 8-2 in the last 10. They're just playing well. What can you say? They're 42-20 on the road. If I'm not mistaken, that's the best road record in baseball. So they're fantastic on the road. They have way more wins on the road than they do at home. I don't know why. It is what it is. Some teams are better at home. Some teams are better on the road, and that's their case. 42-20. Both these teams played an overtime game yesterday, so their relievers are going to be taxed. But if you had to favor who has the better relief pitching, it's going to be the Brewers, regardless. Then we get into the starting pitching. Brandon Woodruff, this man has been one of the three guys for this team. Him, Peralta, and Burns. Those three have carried this Milwaukee Brewers team. He has dominated St. Louis in his career. 2.1 ERA. That is absolutely amazing. In his last 5 starts for St. Louis, he pitches at least 6 innings a majority of the time, 6 to 7, even 8 innings. They may need him to pitch a little bit extra today because of the OT game yesterday. So he is capable of carrying the team today. So that way the relievers can get some time off and rest. St. Louis, as I mentioned, they did a great job fooling people. They went on that 6-game winning streak. Though that 6-game winning streak was against the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Kansas City Royals. Congratulations. You beat up on two of the most trash teams in baseball, and you went on a 6-game run, and people thought, here comes St. Louis. And no. Now they're playing Milwaukee, and it was close. They played 2 close games against the Brewers. You give them credit. They did pitch them. They did play them well. They lost both though. They lost yesterday. They lost the day before. So when they played a quality opponent, what happened? They took the L at home. Simply said. Then we get to the pitching matchup, John Lester. John Lester 5 years ago, we may have had a conversation because he was fantastic. He was winning a World Series for the Cubs. He is no longer that pitcher. Once again, he did a great job last start against the Royals. I think he gave up 1 run. But once again, you had a good start against the Royals. I don't know what to say about that. He has not been consistent at all this whole season for the Nationals or St. Louis since he got traded. 5.29 ERA in his last 7. That is awful, especially for a starter. He hasn't pitched that long into the games, maybe 5 innings at best. And the final point here is that the other two, John Lester has started for them 3 times this season. First start, gave up 5 runs. Second start, gave up 6 runs. And then last start, he had that good start. He gave up 1 run. Regardless, the 5 and 6 are what he basically represents. He has not been consistent the whole year. He's at the end of his career. I don't know how many years he got left. This could be it, to be honest. Maybe he comes back for 1 more. But in totality, if you're looking at this game, it's the Milwaukee Brewers all day.
All right, guys. So that wraps it up for today's episode. Make sure you tune in to the IG page for the final picks and the final say. We do plan on bouncing back after yesterday's
We
poor
will redeem
performance.
ourselves.
We will. So hopefully, you guys, stick with us and believe in us still. With that being said, hope you guys have a great Thursday, and happy gambling. Peace out.